EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Victory Monday edition of Birds 365 here. The Philadelphia Eagles are moving on, everybody, survive in advance, and they will now host the Washington Commanders for the NFC title game, and they won a wild snow game in the divisional round, a 28-22 victory over the LA Rams, and the Birds are moving on. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Monday morning, brother?
I'm doing well. Not quite as well as the Eagles, but doing well. Third championship game at Lincoln Financial Field in 8 years. It's pretty impressive.
Yes,
Not
it is.
Kansas City impressive, but pretty impressive.
Yep, no doubt about it. Definitely impressive. And Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, John, they just keep winning as the leaders of this franchise. You got to tip your cap to them. John, let's get into the game, man. Last night, we'll have Jeff Kerr on later. I want to thank him. Welcome everybody who's going to be here this morning. Anybody watching after the fact, we appreciate you guys for being here. Johnny Mac, what'd you see yesterday, man? That was a crazy game. I was watching it and I was unfolding. I'm like, this is an iconic game, man. The way this thing is all going in the snow, and Saquon Barkley obviously goes for 205 on the ground and another 30 in the air. Another amazing performance from him. That's been the story all year long. What'd you see out there in a wild divisional round matchup, John, for the Eagles?
Saw a lot of Jalen Carter. I think he's the guy I'm going to talk about most today, but I want to give credit to my buddy Bob Brookover, because he said during the game, this is the type of game you want to have the lead when the snow really starts to pile up. And
Right.
I'm like, I didn't think much of it. I'm like, And it was 16-15. It wasn't much of a lead, but all of a sudden here comes the snow and it's going crazy. And the Eagles just allowed the safety all the momentum looks like the Rams. They got first play of the fourth quarter, I think, was from the 42 or 43-yard line. Right? So they had great field position. And all of a sudden, Kyron Williams, which we talked about during the, great back, but has a propensity to fumble. And here comes Jalen Carter with a big club, fumble. Isaiah Rodgers scoops it up in difficult conditions, takes it all the way down to the 10-yard line. But and a little bit later, it was Matthew Stafford coughing it up in the pockets. And Brookie was right. Get the lead before the really, really bad stuff starts. And the Rams made two big mistakes. Now, it would have been nice if the Eagles could have converted them into touchdowns. Certainly should have. Weren't able to. Had to settle for field goals. Weird game from Jake Elliott. Made his field goals, missed that 2 extra points that kept the Rams alive late. And then the snow started to dissipate. And you think the game's over after the second big Saquon run. But the Rams, to their credit, kept fighting, had the football at the 13-yard line with a chance to win the game. And that's when Jalen Carter just took over. The sack, first of all, and then the hurry on the last play, which, but there were, Baldy put up a great clip everybody should watch. I retweeted it, just of Jalen Carter during the game and all the throws he affected. For the people that
he affected the last throw of the game. That Stafford.
That's what he had the sack, and then he forced that errant throw.
Yep.
On the last play of the game.
Yeah, you don't see Matthew Stafford airmail a ball like that often. That's Jalen Carter in his face.
Exactly, and there were a number of times the same thing happened where you said, "Oof!" If there was no pressure there, that's probably a big gain for the Rams. With Matthew Stafford on platform. So, that for the people that always pick up this is the game book and look at sacks for defensive. There's a lot of ways defensive linemen can affect a game. And Jalen Carter used every one of them in that game. And to me, he was the MVP of the game.
And John, shout out to you. You called that before the game. I made everybody do the exercise. Who will be the MVP of the game in an Eagles win? And John picked it, Birds and Jalen Carter. So Johnny Mac was right on point with that, John. This is courtesy of Jeff Kerr, and we're going to have Jeff Kerr on in a little bit. So looking forward to talking to him. Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith combined on Sunday versus the Rams. 13 pressures, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for losses, 2 forced fumble, 5 solo tackles, and 1 pass deflection. The Eagles' first rounders brought the heat, Johnny Mac. The Georgia boys, they have more than arrived. They are now helping us reach NFC title games. Safe to say those boys are panning out, Johnny Mac. When you help a team win a divisional round playoff game in the snow, all right, you've earned your stripes.
Yeah, I was thinking back, for long-time listeners of the show, I was thinking back to draft night because I told a story when the Eagles got Jalen Carter. I was, floored that the rest of the league let that happen, and I texted a former GM on him, and I said, "What do you think?" Just quick tip, a quick text about the pick, and he didn't get back to me right away because it's busy night for people like that.
Yeah,
And,
honestly. Yeah.
so I didn't think much of it. I figured he'd get back to me when he had some time. And after the 30th pick, that's when he got back to me with a quick text. Are you effing kidding me? Why are these teams allowing the Philadelphia Eagles to get these players? Nolan Smith was the 30th pick. And, a lot of people, were off Nolan Smith. A lot of people didn't think much of Jalen Carter after his first year, which was kind of silly, but, because he didn't maybe have the conditioning that he has now. But, you could certainly see the talent with Jalen Carter. It took a little bit longer with Nolan Smith, but I just immediately went back to that text. I still have it in my phone. What are these teams doing? What are they doing? They're just handing great players. In the case of Jalen Carter, I mean, he was the best player in that draft. Now, there's obvious reasons why he fell. And I always pick on the Bears, and I'm sorry, Bears fans, if there's any Bears fans left. I mean, they passed on him twice. Because you don't have the balls.
Didn't they trade with us? Move back with us?
They moved back. They had the number 1 overall pick, so I
Right.
get it. They didn't want to take certainly him that pick, and then I get it. And I guess they were almost hoping when they traded back the second time that somebody would take Carter beforehand, so it would be off their hands. But they got the ignominy of doing it twice. But all those teams, they just didn't have the courage to bring them in to their locker room, and they're worried about, well, what if he does this and what if he does that? If you meet Jalen Carter, you know pretty quick he's very humble guy. He's very understated guy. He's very young. He's very a little bit immature, but he's extremely polite. He's not. He made a terrible mistake. Nobody's trying to downplay that, but to think that this guy was robbing banks or something,
Come on. I mean, come on.
I mean, these teams are scared of their own shadow, and the Eagles are like, all right, we'll bring him in with their strong locker room, and it's paying dividends now, because he's only going to get better, and he dominated that game.
No doubt.
And you brought up the stats from Jeff. Stats don't tell the story.
No, they don't, and they're still good, though. That's how you know that they're down. I mean, there was more than just the stats in this game, but the stats are still pretty damn good.
It's unbelievable. I mean, again, Baldy put all these throws, the last throw of the game, obviously, but all these throws during the game that are there if Stafford just has a little bit more time. But as I said, the thing that affects quarterbacks the most is pressure up the middle. And you saw it basically throughout that game from Jalen Carter.
Yeah, especially against a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, who thrives on throwing the ball from the pocket, a clean pocket. So a big game yesterday for them. John, let's talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit. All right, I'm already seeing the conversation around the ether. Jeff McMullen put up an article today. Jalen Hurts is going to have to be better in order for them to beat the Commanders. I had zero issues with the quarterback's play yesterday. I'm watching a snow fall down around me. John, this is that thick, wet, heavy, slushy snow. It's not those light, fluffy, airy flakes at all. He did what he had to do, man. No turnovers in that game with snow coming down like that. I know he didn't do anything crazy over the top, but another performance where he manages the game, doesn't put the ball in harm's way, lets Saquon Barkley eat, and we are now 8 quarters away from a Super Bowl championship. John, your thoughts on Jalen Hurts in yesterday's game?
Yeah, I don't think he played well. Yeah, I mean, I just talked about the turnovers. That's certainly a big part of it. So to play a clean game is great. He was great in the running game, starting with the 44-yard touchdown early where he had a big burst.
Run there.
Unfortunately, he hurt his knee, and that's gonna be a big story this week. But people want to bring up stats when they're good. They don't want to bring up stats when they're bad. The Eagles' 65 net passing yards were the fewest by any team in a playoff game in the last decade. 10 years. 10 years. 10 years. Now, they're winning this unique way, so I get it. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to people and say he's playing well.
No, I don't want you to lie. I don't expect you to lie.
65 net passing yards. Now, you go to those 7 sacks, you're going to hear, well, what's wrong with the offensive line? What's wrong with the offensive line is the quarterback's holding on to the damn ball too long. Now, not every sack, but if you look at them individually, I think people should know by now how dominant that offensive line is, whether they're giving them 8 seconds to throw against Green Bay or whatever the hell it was. 6 point, I'm exaggerating, 6.7 or whatever it was. Yeah, not playing well. So, I mean, this is it. You got to ride this formula to the promised land, and maybe they can. They've been doing it, not turning it over. That's the whole philosophy. I said it all last week. They've become extremely risk averse, and they took one shot. And by the way, to defend Jalen, they took the one shot to AJ. AJ's not right. He didn't have a drop all year. He drops what could have been, likely puts him at the 1 or 2 or whatever. Maybe he gets in, but certainly he doesn't usually drop that. But you saw, the weather. Look, the elements were a big factor. I'm not saying that. We just talked about the Rams turnovers, but to the passing game, I mean, Stafford's over 300 yards. And that's what all the throws being effective. What the hell would have been if Jalen Carter wasn't out there? So to say you couldn't throw the football, well, you saw the other guy throwing the football.
Yeah, but you always talk about this. Come on, the context matters. Matthew Stafford also had to come back in the game.
Well, sure. But I'm saying the fact that you can't throw the ball because of the weather is objectively false, because the other guy could throw the ball. I'm not saying you want to be behind.
Right. You're just saying the weather factor is not as big of a factor as people are making it out. Okay.
Exactly. You're seeing one guy throw the football and one guy not throwing the football. Now, one guy's not throwing the football because, again, the Eagles have become risk averse. All that factors into it. He's trying to protect the ball. He's doing a great job protecting the ball. Nobody's trying to say that. Was a monster in the running game until he hurt his knee. So that's all good. But I don't know how you can sit here and say the least net passing yards in a decade in the NFL playoffs is, oh, yeah, that's great. I mean, you're lying to yourself.
Well, there was a couple big drops in that game by a sure-handed receiver in A.J. Brown that he had no drops all year. He's got 2 big drops.
I'm not giving the second drop because he'd be in a hospital if he didn't drop the first one. I mean, that's a freaking hospital ball.
That was
there was
like 3 or 4 defenders there.
All the people can say, oh, he's got to catch that ball. He's short on it. Yeah, he probably wants to live, and he probably doesn't want to go to the hospital. Yeah, did he short arm it? Is that a good throw? That's what I'm talking about. Yes, the other drop, that's on AJ. You know, live to play another down. Yeah, I'm not going to blame AJ for that drop.
Well, you know, the popular stat going around right now, John, is Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen had right about the same passing yards with no touchdowns and no turnovers, and their two teams won the game. Meanwhile, the guys throwing for the yards and making the plays lost the 2 game. And there you go. You got 4 quarterbacks advancing, John. They were the 4 teams in the divisional round who
but
did not turn the ball
right,
over, though.
All right. You know, because I know Lamar is going to get a lot of shit because Baltimore lost again. I mean, and the vast majority probably in this town, if they watched the game, they weren't watching it closely. You know, Mark Andrews, who's one of the all-time great Ravens, drops the football. You know, people are making excuses for the quarterback here because the great receiver dropped the football.
Right.
Drops the football in the 2-point middle throw, middle of his chest, would have tied the game. Maybe they go on and lose. Who knows? They weren't going to win.
Might not have been in that situation had Lamar not turned it over. But I'm with you. I mean, the play was right there to be made, and a guy that you trust in Mark Andrews didn't make the play.
So, you know, and people are going to say, well, the quarterback lost. Well, Josh Allen threw for 127 yards, so it's okay to throw for 125 yards. No, trust me, Buffalo's not happy. You know, are they happy? And Buffalo went off sort of kilter because they ran it so much, which was a surprise. You know, it's always a surprise with them, but you know, weather played into that game as well. And you know, Andrews fumbled too. One of the all-time great players in that franchise's history. You know, what are you going to do? Sometimes ball, but that's kind of the way when you know, things can happen in the playoffs. And the Eagles dominated that football game. And they were 13 yards away from losing. If Jalen Carter didn't put that pressure on Matthew Stafford.
My heart was racing like a madman on that last drive, Johnny Mac. I'm like, don't tell me Matthew Stafford's going to lead them down. Puka Nacua made that crazy catch over Darius Slay on the sideline.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't tell me this. Don't tell me this. Or the missed point after is going to come back and bite us in the ass, John. I thought for a second it was possible. But as you mentioned, Jalen Carter prevailed and made a play, man.
Yeah, and that wasn't his only play. Oof.
No,
I mean, that was an all-time great. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend the passing game. Oh yeah, it's great. No worries. You know, either you're open. Yeah. And by the way, Kellen Moore did just fine with his interviews. The Eagles won the game, but you know,
I don't know. Some of those fucking play calls, though, Johnny, man. I mean, John, your quarterback gets banged up with a bad looking tackle that hurts his knee. You're at your own 4-yard line, and you have a 5-step drop into the end zone. I'm sorry, I just don't understand that.
Well, I have no problem. I would have ran the ball.
How about the bootleg? What are you running a bootleg for with a banged up knee?
I mean, I would have ran the ball 90% of the time.
Me too. You and me both.
In that particular game. But I mean, the safety is on the goddamn quarterback. Like you're trusting.
I'm not calling that play there, though, John.
All right, fine. But why are you not calling that play? Because you don't trust the quarterback?
Well, I mean, does the hit that he took to the knee have any factor in it there? I've never seen Jalen look more immobile in my life, John. Jalen is a very mobile player. He's always had an ability to be elusive and escape from the pocket. He didn't even move, John.
My original point is none of this has anything to do with taking interviews before the game. Number one. Number two, I don't have any problem with people questioning, because I would have ran the ball there until the Rams are the worst run support team I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, they are.
Man. I mean, yeah, there's one guy in the history of football that has 200 yards against a team in the regular season, and then 200 yards against a team in the postseason. It's Saquon Barkley yesterday, getting to 205. 4 touchdowns of 60 yards or more, 3 of 70 yards or more. I mean, yeah, I'm going to run the football against that team. So I agree with that process of it. But again, why is the football not coming out?
Yeah, no, he does hold the ball. There's no doubt. I mean, I think he was a little uncomfortable out there in that snow, and I don't think he had much confidence, with this. John, it was that really. I'm telling you, this was not just light, fluffy snow, man. This stuff was wicked snow. I don't think he had the confidence in the arm out there yesterday.
Well, and maybe the right criticism of Kellen Moore is, because they're playing so risk averse, play risk averse. Don't put it in his hands.
Right.
Or for all these people that want to say, "Oh, Jalen's doing great. Jalen's doing this, but don't trust him to do anything as the quarterback of the football team." I mean, where does that fit in? All the bad people like McMullen and all the people that credit, and then you don't trust them, but goddamn, to let them drop back. And I'm not picking on you, Zander.
No, I know.
I'm talking to people.
You
You don't trust them to drop back in the end zone. I mean, which is it? Get the football out. Dallas Goedert was there, wide open. I think it was Dallas.
Yeah, it was right across the middle. I saw that.
Right in the field division. Throw the damn football. Even if you got to throw it at somebody's feet, if you don't believe what you're seeing, get rid of the football.
John, we got Jeff Kerr coming up. We're going to break all this down. We're going to dive into all of it with Jeff Kerr. I'm sure we'll have a great segment with him. Jeff, I've been using a couple of your stats this morning, brother. Good job by you, as always. We appreciate it. And we'll get to Jeff Kerr in a second here. Two other things I want to talk to you about, John, real quick. All right. First is the Commanders are coming to town for the NFC title game. All right. Just your early thoughts on that. And then the second topic I want you to get into, if you can, is Detroit gets bounced. John, all that buildup we did all year long, I said it. I'm happy we're playing Washington. Don't get me wrong. But I almost feel a little let down because we built up this matchup against Detroit all year long. What's it going to look like? Their offense versus our defense, all these different things. And now we don't even get to see it, Johnny Mac. Your thoughts on that and the Commanders coming down?
That happens all the time, unfortunately.
Yep.
There's always I felt even better when Washington pulled off the upsets. From the Eagles' perspective, because you generally have at least one upset, and then you had your upset, so you felt comfortable that the Rams weren't going to come in, and really the Eagles should have won that game by a lot more than they did. But they were able to get it done, and then Buffalo holds on against Baltimore, which I don't even know technically who was favored. I assume Buffalo was favored, but I'm not paying attention.
I think it was a pick 'em. I'm not sure on that game.
But the home team won. So Chiefs hold serve, you get the upset. Eagles hold serve, Bills hold serve. So 3 out of 4.
Yep.
Usually get 1, and it happened the day before. So had to be a good omen in more ways than one. But yeah, I mean, they turned it over a bunch and couldn't stop Washington, and the injuries finally caught them. And even in that game, the cornerback who was playing well, like their fourth quarterback, they got to throw in somebody who was on the Eagles practice squad last year, Kendall Vildor.
Good pull right there.
Yeah.
Who was that? Amik Robertson? Who
Amik Robertson,
broke his arm. I don't know what happened there, man.
Yeah, broke his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
real quick, John, just your thoughts
for Detroit, but
yeah, no, it is. Commanders coming into town next week, though, John. Just your early week out right now. Look at that game, man. That team is red hot. I think Jane Daniels is the hottest quarterback in football right now. I think he's playing better now than he has played all year, including better than the 5-touchdown performance he had last time we played them.
Well, the amazing thing to me, if you look at divisional round weekends, so you have Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud. You have Jared Goff. You have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, who are going to be 1-2 in the MVP race. Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts. And the most calm and collected of all, besides Mahomes, was Jaden Daniels. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing. That said, the Eagles are going to trounce that team. I mean, they're just not ready from a talent perspective. Great story. Tremendous job. Jaden Daniels is going to be a problem for a long time. Dan Quinn did a great job. I love the way he plays. He's going to come in here and try to win the game. Not going to be Sean McVay. Not going to be taking field goals. He's going to try to win the game.
Yeah.
So that automatically puts more stress on you if you don't play well. Adam Peters has done a great job rebuilding that team. First year as the GM. All of it great, but they're just not ready. And I'm always going to take Vic Fangio against a young quarterback. He's going to come up with a couple wrinkles.
Yep.
That confuse Jaden Daniels. And look, the Commanders are the only team to beat the Eagles. And
you said the Eagles are going to trounce them, though, John. We've always had close freaking games. The Command. We went to overtime with Sam freaking Howell last year, man.
Well, I mean, yeah. Sometimes you play down to your competition. I don't think, in the NFC Championship game, the Eagles are going to be taking the Commanders for granted, like they probably were when Sam Howell was the quarterback.
That's true.
Even in the first game this year, I mean, they dominated that game. They had, that's probably, except for the opener against Tampa, that's probably the worst game Daniels has played. And then the second game, Jalen got hurt 6 minutes in, and even with that, if DeVonta Smith catches a football, they win. And it took them 59 minutes and 54 seconds to beat them.
Yep.
So
let's get to our commercial break. We're going to get to Jeff Kerr. I got a couple super chats to rattle off real quick. No Limit says Washington may have found their Pat Mahomes. He's looking pretty damn good. I'm not going to go that far. James Jones, I told you all my son was good. Our resident Commander fan is feeling good on this Monday morning.
I told everybody Jay Daniels was the guy on draft night.
Yes, you did, John. Dakota Warren, Snoquan, Barkley, LFG. I can taste the trophy. I love it. Dirty Air checks in. Hey, J-Mac, how about that Dawkins appearance during the game yesterday? Very WWE-like, John.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. They hyped him up. A lot of I don't know what the hell he said, but he hyped the people up. I still don't know what he said, but yeah, it was a nice little.
Yeah, good stuff.
I don't know.
Two more here from Alexander Harris. Alexander Harris, what's up, brother? Good to see you guys in here. Funny how the Eagles finished the regular season in second place and ended up with a bye week before the playoffs and home field advantage throughout. Yep, you're right. That's how it worked out. Also, Zander, you bring up the snow for a reason. Jalen Hurts didn't play well, but Matthew went for over 300 yards in those elements. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some different factors, obviously. The Rams had to throw in the game. The Eagles never had to really throw in the game. So I think that factors into it. But
it factors into the numbers, but if you're watching it, it doesn't factor in.
Yeah, you're saying that you should be able to still throw the ball if needed in that game. I get what you're saying. All right, let's get to our commercial break. All right. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a BetUS live read. All right, and then we'll go right to Jeff Kerr here. Jeff, looking forward to getting you up here, brother. So let's do that soon. Let me tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. All right, I showed you this promo code before. I've showed you it all year long. And I'll show you it again. They're here to sponsor the 2-hour show today. Shout out to BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. Use the promo code YouTube150. Gives you a 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. And you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit more and deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry and 24/7 customer support. Let's go to our main man, Jeff Kerr.